Hi everybody, it's Nettie Kaye back at the studio in McCall, Idaho. Today we're going to be doing a wonderful project. It's gorgeous setup that I've got for a still life. This is 3 huge oranges in a cream colored antique bowl with a silver pitcher on a light blue cloth. And I've got it sitting in my window so that the light is coming in on one side. It's very hard to light the studio and have a good sense of light and shadow, but we're going to do our best today. Okay, first thing I've done is I've sketched it out a little bit. I've got my 3 oranges here, a little bowl, and here's the pitcher. And then I sprayed it with hairspray. That's how we usually start a lot of our pieces. We just start by giving ourselves a clue and then spraying it down with hairspray as soon as we're happy, and then we get going on the next phase. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm mixing up some a little bit of thinner with I got to get a little more thinner here. I've got some thinner with some cobalt violet mixed with a little bit of alizarin crimson. Now this is just going to be our purple underpainting, and I'm going to make it really juicy. I got to make sure I got enough thinner on it so that we can still see. And you say, well, why in the world are you painting it purple when you've got all these oranges and blue cloths? Well, we got to have something to kind of work off of. And this is just our tonal rendering that we do to start with. And you can see I've got this, it's a big brush. The bigger your brush, the more you'll be able to cover and get done. I want to be able to get this really established before the paint begins to dry. Yes, it's oil paint, but because I've used a lot of thinner, the thinner will dry rather quickly. And so I'm sure you're probably freaking out like, well, what in the world was the reason that we did the drawing? Oh, hey, it's still there. Watch. I'm going to rub this in just like we do on our dog portraits or people portraits. I don't tone the canvas often right off the bat. I tone it after I get my drawing down sometimes. And so it's just something that I really like doing, partly because I can get the tonal values established, the lights and the darks kind of established a little bit ahead of time. Okay, now I'm going to start coming in and I'll find where some of the highlights are and the lights are hitting on different parts of the vase. I'm going to work my way backwards towards myself so that you can see. You can get into a whole lot of detail if you want. You don't have to. You can just sort of rub it in, rub out the highlights. This is where I'm trying to find all the highlights or the lights, not the highlights, well, the lights and the highlights on the painting with my cloth as quickly as I can figure it out. And it just helps because then you don't have to think about where the highlights are at the same time that you're trying to establish what the colors are. You can think about one thing at a time. All right, I've got a dark area here behind the light, and then I've got this drapery coming up like this with the morning light shining through the window. Now, one of the things that I didn't do is I didn't just center. I didn't put any objects dead center in the middle of the canvas. Boy, that'll just throw your composition off so bad. You want to kind of make things a little bit off center and have a nice flow to it. And I've also got 1, 2, 3 oranges, not 2 oranges. You know, you don't want it to look like a baby's bum. And then I've also got I've got a scale. The scale of things are as such. All right, I've got my top up here where I've got a drapery coming down. That's the higher part. Then I have the next level down, which is the pot or the pitcher, the pouring vase. And then the next thing down are the oranges here, and then this. Do things in 3s, 5s, and 7s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 objects, okay? Not 4, not 2, 3, 5, and 7. Our eyes just enjoy that much more. Okay, now I'm going to set out my palette with some darks. I'm going to continue with this dark purple to put in some darks now, all right? So the first thing I'm going to think about is that I've got a dark area right here in the shadow of the drapery. Drapery, think about it. It's like, ooh, that's too hard. No, just think about it this way, okay? There in drapery, there are some basic tonal values that you have to think about. If you lay in where the dark is to start with, okay, I've got 3 lines here. That's not tough. 3 dark lines that are kind of curvy. Drapery is curvy, but it's also got some interesting angles to it. So I look really hard for the darkest darks to start with, especially when I'm doing still life. And I think about this. It needs 3, at least 3 tonal values. So I have a dark, and then I'll have a middle tone. And so what we've got on here is the middle tone, and then we put the light. So it goes like this: dark, middle tone, light, middle tone, dark, middle tone, light, middle tone, dark. We'll make a song out of it someday, and you'll stick in your head and you'll be mad at me at 2 in the morning. Okay, let's see. I've got a little bit of this. I'm not fussy about it. I'm just going to kind of get this thing to sit down a little bit. I love this purple. I'm crazy about purple. You can tell I've got purple background right now. I guess it's the color of the year. My husband, who really isn't into all these things, sometimes said, hey, guess what? Purple is the color of the year this year. And I said, oh, good. I've been doing it just right for the last couple of years. We go through phases where you have different things that you just like, you know, for a while. I'll be into Indian yellow, or I'll be into, you know, transparent orange, and then I'll be into purple, and right now it's purple and you just love all of it, don't you? Okay, so now I'm going to take this drapery. This is the drapery up here. And so I'm just trying to find just where the shadows are on the drape. And then I'm also going to put in a little bit right here inside the bowl. Now I know that this bowl is not purple. I know that. I'm thinking in the lines of dark and, you know, the shadow and the light. I don't think about what color is that. Purple is a secondary color made by what? Blue and red. And it can be different blues and different reds. It's just, you know, that you can, you know, vary it up a little bit. So, but it's a wonderful shadow color. It's this violet purple. I love it. I love it. Okay. Now, I know this is going to be dark around this because I've got to have this handle looking a little bit light. So we'll put a little bit of the dark color in here, just a little bit to remind ourselves where we're going. Okay, does that make sense? Now I know I want this to be nice and light over here, so I'm going to put dark behind it in order to make it kind of pop out a little. All right, now let's see. This is going to be the dark part here. There's going to be a middle tone next to it, and then there'll be a light. So the fabric is going to, it needs to feel as though it connects up with this piece over here. So you're, like in my We Da Vinci class, I do this. I'll say, okay kids, we put in the background, we go right up to the object, jump over the object, and then come out the other side. Don't draw a line right through your vase. That would ruin it. Let's get a shadow around this orange so that it will pop out a little bit. And, ooh, right here, this has got to be very, very dark in order for the bowl to stick out. And then we put the orange in like that. Let's see, where does that go? Yeah, look at that. Wow, that's going to be so pretty. And then this orange is a little bit darker on one side. And this orange is going to be just in a middle value right there. When I say the word value, it's not how much it's worth. It means how light or how dark it is. Okay. Now that's a good start. I'm going to now lay out a few more really bright colors, and we're really going to make it jump up and sing. All right. I've just laid out a few more colors on my palette. One is cadmium orange, which is a very opaque orange, not the transparent orange that we use for a lot of things, but this is a cadmium orange, and it's very, very bright and very thick. On top of that, I have some ultramarine blue and a little bit of white. So, all right, where are we now? I've got some blue on mixed with white, ultramarine blue mixed with white. Let's test that out and see where that hits. Wow, isn't that pretty? Now, the reason I'm going to use this in kind of a thick impasto kind of thing. Now, normally you work with you work from thin to thick, but when you're doing impressionistic painting, sometimes it helps to just get her in there and do it in one fell swoop. So, alla prima, what does that mean? Well, alla prima means that you are doing it in one sitting or all at once. That's what it really means. And so we're going to make this nice and loose, I hope, and we'll see how far we get. I like it loose. Some people like it really tight. Okay, here we go. Here's where this part will just shine out of the darkness. All right, let's get some of this darker blue in here, and we'll establish this part right here. Now it's starting to pop just a little bit. I do tend to jump around so that I'm not just finishing one tiny little piece at a time, and then I go and work. You know, you don't do it that way. You kind of want to work the whole thing over all at once so that you don't tend to make one area all finished and then you try to match it to the next one. It doesn't work that way. If your skill level changes by the time you get to the other side of the canvas. That's not good. I did a children's book not too long ago, and one of the things that you learn, especially if it takes a long time to do a full book, which it did. It took me 11 years to finish. By the time, if you start at the front of the page, the front of the book, and then you do the first illustration, and then the second illustration, and the third illustration, what happens is you're so much better by the time you hit the middle of the book that the first illustration looks terrible. So they often want you to work the whole thing over at once. In other words, start in the middle almost and do all the rough drafts, all the rough drawings, and then work it up. And so that's kind of what we're doing here. We're working the whole book over at one time, if that makes sense. Grabbing some more of that purple to put behind. This is very, very, very dark. Back in here. It may not be that when I'm looking at what I'm looking at. It might not be very dark behind there, but I need it to be so that this looks light, all right? I'm going to get a clean brush, and I'm going to grab some medium because this is so stiff. Oh my gosh. And I'm going to pop in the orange with the cadmium orange. And I'm going to do this. This is the light side of the orange, and I'm not going to put the dark side in yet. I've kind of got that already established with our under rubbing. Isn't this going to be great? Yeah. Hopefully I'll have this painting finished into to a point where I'll feel like it's saleable, and I'll put it on my Etsy site. That'll be fun. Now this orange is kind of it's not the lightest light, all right? It's just the middle light, and there'll be highlights. So I like to think about the values in fives. Okay, five tonal values. So I have the body tone, which might be that, and then I have a dark, and then I have a cast shadow, which is even darker. And then we go the other direction. So I have the body tone, and I'll have a light, and then I have a highlight. So 5 values will really help me get a wonderful effect. I don't have to go up to 10, which a lot of people do. All right, now I'm going to put a little bit of that orange right there because I see that in that pot. It's reflecting into that pot. Don't forget, if it's a shiny surface, it's going to pick that up, all right? What would happen if I mix some blue with the orange? It gives me this color, which is kind of a neutral gray kind of color, grayish green, okay? And so I'm going to try that on my pot, and I like it. I'm going to put that color right up here, kind of a grayish green, or a warm gray. What am I saying? Oh gosh. One of the things that takes a huge amount of, I don't know if we call it talent, but being able to talk and paint at the same time. When you are in your studio or in your classroom, don't be talking, all right? You can't do your best work when your mouth is going on and on and on, unless you're me. Okay. Now, I do my best work when I'm quiet, but I really want to be able to share with you what I know, so I'm yammering. Okay, isn't that interesting how that begins to come out? Now, I'm seeing this color also underneath the orange right here to set that orange off. There is this wonderful shadow color, and right here, it's an obscure color. Grays are very obscure. There are 2 different kinds of grays. The meaning of the word gray, most of the people will think gray is black mixed with white, but you can gray a color down by using its complement. So I just put orange with a blue or purple, you know, that kind of a thing, so that it looks interesting. Now, let's go back in and do that fabric underneath here. Partly because I want to see what happens. I'm going to reflect that up into our weird gray. I'm going to put a little bit of that blue fabric color because this is a shiny bowl. It's sort of shiny, all right. And so I'm putting a little bit of that blue into there. And then we'll take that, whatever is left on the brush seems to have a little bit of the orange, and it just makes it interesting. Okay, let's go up in here now, and I'm going to add some of that bluish color. And I'm going to reflect a little bit of the blue up into, I can see that from where I'm seated. Oh boy, see, you can't talk and paint at the same time. And I look really, really hard at it and say, okay, what am I really seeing? What am I seeing? Well, I'm seeing this fabric down here reflected into the pot too. So I'll put a couple of little marks that I see. I don't have to be totally exact, but I want to indicate some of what is reflecting up into the silver, which is this blue. Now you can see it's starting to get shiny, isn't it? It's really cool. And now I'm going to take some of the white with just a touch of orange on it and see what happens. Not dark orange, but it's just a lighter, warm color right there. And I'll put that right here on the pot. It's reflecting the table is what's happening. It reflects the table, and it reflects a few other things. So now I'm going to see what happens if I add that light orange on top of my fabric as part of my highlight, and I like it. It works good. All right, let's find out what is this color over here. This is part of our weirdo gray, and it swirls up a little bit like this. Okay, there. I'm going to make this a really pretty soft blue over here. So, and then this part has got a little bit of that same strange gray color of orange and blue. That works. You get a wonderful gray. There's different grays that you can get by using the complements with a little bit of white, okay? Blue is the complement to orange. Yellow is the complement to purple. Red is the complement to green. Those are the three that you need to remember. When you get old, you forget. So anyway, any of those that you mix together are going to give you a brown or a gray. Okay. And they work. All right, so here I have this. I want to put a darker value. So now I'm going to grab a little bit of purple again. Oops, purple, purple. There, okay. This has got to be a little darker as it goes in. And we'll put some more purple like that. Purple and orange. Let's see what happens. A little purple, a little orange. What am I doing? I'm going to see what happens if I put a little more purple. So I'm muting down this orange in the shadow by putting the orange with purple. There's a parting line right there too. Good. And we'll do the same thing over here a little more dramatically so that one orange can pop out from the other. White, a little bit of blue, and it has a little bit of orange on it too because I want that to kind of look like this cream colored dish right here. I'm going to bring it together right there with that other piece of paint. And then with what's on my brush, I'm going to lean my brush around. That worked. And we need a little bit of a darker color. Purple mixed with orange. Around, around. I don't want to highlight. I just want it kind of lighter and in a warm tone. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to think about, I'm just going to play around with it a little bit. I want a little bit of a highlight just so you can see what this looks like. Let's just see what happens if I put a light blue highlight. Now that's interesting. This is not a highlight, this is a light. I don't want to mess it up too much. Let's try a different one. Violet with white. Let's see what happens there. Interesting. Let's try it over here. Interesting. I'm wiping my brush off now. I'm going to take just a little bit of this and make tiny little scumbles with it. I think it's sort of working. I'm now spotting a little bit of a really light color that's just bouncing off of here. Let's see if I can figure out where that goes. It goes right about here. Yeah. And then I just spotted another orange reflection. The more you look at something, the more you begin to see. But wow, when you first glance at it, you might not even notice what you're looking at there. The main thing when you're doing something like this is to just keep in mind that you are looking at and looking and looking and saying, what am I really seeing, you know? And then not be afraid to put it down. All right, now I'm going to go in and just put some highlights in. We'll just kind of throw in a little bit like that. Pick up a little more. And I see there's something weird here. I don't know if that's my studio lights or what, but, and then this one comes up like that. And then as I kind of, my brush goes down into what I've had underneath, I know that's a middle tone, so I'm going to drag that around and kind of move these pieces together. And I want the orange to be able to be seen. You don't want to have every orange popping out as though there is no focus. So we have to kind of think about that too. A lot of times it's a good idea to decide ahead of time, where's your focus? And then everything else needs to be duller than that, all right? So you make sure you know where your focus is, and then everything else is less intense. I tend to just really be intense all the time, but that's just my personality as well, so oh well, you know. Part of the reason I do the drawing ahead of time is because I'm sitting off to the side. Normally when I would paint, I would do this. I would be right like this. You've seen me do that before. I would paint directly in front of the piece, and so it's a little bit fun to try to, yeah, if I do the drawing ahead of time, I'm less likely to just make terrible mistakes. Okay, that's starting to come together. Now I'm going to take a almost pure white, and I'm going to come in here and establish what I see as the rim of the bowl. By turning it like this. That looks a little weird. Coming down. I put a little bit of light back there. Isn't that fun? It's just so beautiful. Okay, there's some really extreme highlights that I'm just gonna go for. I've got one right here. There should only be like one major highlight in line with the light. Don't put a bunch of them all over the place where they don't belong. Sometimes there's reflected light, but there should be one major line of highlight wherever you go, in line with the light. For instance, like this side, maybe a little bit right there, and then it disappears. Oh, and there's one that is picking up all the way down into here. Let's try, okay, over here I have that highlight, which is just a little doodad on the handle that I want to put in. One there in line with the light. And then the edge, again, I'm going to make that really fat and cut it down. And the same thing, in line with the light, we've got our oranges that have got a highlight in them too. Let's just put a little more highlight in. It's got a little bit of blue in it because that's opposite. And then a little bit more. I'm just putting some dots for texture. A little bit like that. I'm just going to step back from the painting for just a moment, and I'll be right back. Okay. All right, everybody, I'm going to have to take a break right now, so we're going to make this little lesson into a two-parter, and we'll finish this one up next time we meet. All right? Thanks so much for watching. And don't forget to subscribe so you'll know when the next one comes up, all right? You'll get notified. Doesn't cost you anything. So subscribe and share with your friends, and we'll finish this one up next time, all right? Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you. Bye-bye.